the most hated people on paternity court.
The time in which you were sleeping with that person as well as
this person and that person.
Yes, you're the person with the trust issue.
Are you undermining his authority?
No,
he doesn't have to listen to me.
I feel like I have to choose.
A marriage on the brink of a divorce. Uh-oh. Mrs. Johnson planned to divorce her husband of 7 years if he didn't agree to family counseling. The cause of this discord was apparently the son of Mrs. Johnson, and now they were here for some much-needed answers.
You claim your husband of 7 years is forcing you to choose him over your 12-year-old son, Elijah. You state that you have separated multiple times over the past 5 years of your marriage. You argue that it's because your wife undermines your authority and allows her 12-year-old son to disrespect you.
The plaintiff immediately launched into the instances where her husband treated her son differently than their other kid. Yep, he played favorites. However, Mr. Johnson didn't agree to it at all and laid the whole blame on the wife.
He would participate in our son Ethan's.
That's not
that
true at all.
photo right there was Elijah's birthday. I took him to the go-karts. My son was so upset. He sat there and cried because nobody came to his birthday party.
He wasn't upset that I didn't come. He was upset that his cousins did come from Florida.
The defendant stood his ground that he didn't favor the other kid more. He further stated that he had been doing everything a father does for their kid since he was a little boy. So what was the issue? Apparently, Elijah had been disrespectful towards him. Interesting.
You said your son asked you, Mom, why can't I have a dad too?
He does have a dad. I'm there for him. I potty trained him. I taught him how to ride bikes. I play video games with him. I've tried
this was
so many
years
times.
ago,
It was
though.
years ago.
Mr. Johnson, but do you show favoritism? Do you?
No, I
To
don't.
your
Yes, he
biological
does.
child?
Mr. Jason ended up sharing an instance where the 12-year-old Elijah hadn't been a respectful kid, and it was quite detailed. Moreover, the husband claimed his wife undermined his authority, and that encouraged the kid to not respect him. Clearly, there were a lot of underlying parenting issues.
We got a new place together. I started to remodel the entire place. She told him specifically to clean up after himself. He is 12 years old. I cleaned the entire house. 5 minutes later, he destroyed it. There's food everywhere. I asked him, pick up after yourself. I shouldn't have to do it. You're 12 years old.
Are you undermining his authority?
No,
he
I'm
doesn't
not.
have to listen
He
to
knows
me.
I feel like I have
He
to
knows
choose
he don't.
It would appear that Elijah was not only disrespectful to Mr. Johnson, but the rest of the family as well. Wow. Furthermore, he claimed the kid was in desperate need of some semblance of discipline. The only hurdle was his mother, as she kept coddling him.
She fights with him constantly over the simplest things. Clean your room, listen, don't talk back. He cannot be disciplined, she won't discipline him, and instead of disciplining him, she babies him. He's 12 years old, can he pick up after himself? Can he respect his
So
elders?
learning how to do chores, clean up after
Respect.
himself.
Yeah, but you
Do
gotta
you think he
give
respects
respect.
his
I
mother?
did give respect for many, many years.
Mr. and Mrs. Johnson were now separated, and their marriage was at stake. According to them both, they loved each other evidently, but were not on the same page. Clearly, they had different parenting styles, and no one was ready to back down.
I mean, I love Jason with all my heart. I do. And
I love
I
her
would
too.
love for, us to work and to be a happy family.
We don't
but
see eye to
at
eye.
the point it's at right now, I just don't know if that's ever going to happen because so much has happened. So many.
How do you want me to be a father but
being
not do fatherly
disrespectful
things?
and
Well, the mommy came prepared with a witness. He was her father, and he attested to the fact that Mr. Johnson indeed behaved differently with both Elijah and Ethan. To this, Mr. Johnson stated that the grandpa behaved differently with Ethan and favored Elijah more. Clearly, everyone had their favorites here.
You ask Ethan to pick up your room, it's like, would you pick up your room? What's wrong with you? Why don't
So why aren't we here for the way you talk to Ethan? Doesn't that go for both kids, though? Wouldn't that go for both children, not just Elijah? Like what Ethan, my son, he does the same thing. He babies Elijah. Oh, it'll be
you
okay.
shouldn't yell at Ethan
oh, it'll
either
be
like
okay.
that.
You yell at him.
Now, the defendant obviously believed that the children needed to be disciplined above all else, while his wife believed Mr. Johnson wasn't representing a steady image of himself. Both were not backing down, it seemed, and amidst all of this, the father-in-law stated what the couple should eventually do. Reality check much.
one of our biggest arguments is financial. And he's like, I help you and it's 50-50 with both of us. But it's not. Jason pays half of the bills and that's about it. Every once in a while,
A lot of men out here
his
ain't doing
mom
that.
helps more with the kids.
He needs to focus less on molding the children and more on providing.
Mr. Emolsch had some strong opinions on their marriage, but by the looks of it, when he was supervising Elijah, he too couldn't handle the boy as well. The judge tried to understand their situation, but soon these guys were lashing out at each other, and Judge Lake gave them a piece of her mind. Ain't no funny business with her.
Courtney has to work tomorrow. You guys are gonna have to figure something out.
Yeah, but my
that's
dad
fine.
also had plans. You know what I'm saying? My dad is retired. My niece
So
was
it
there.
didn't
She's
happen?
11, and my son is 12. He had plans, so they still have to be under some kind of supervision.
Finally, the witness from the defendant's side came forward. And much like the plaintiff's father, the defendant's mother also had some things to share. And it was indeed enlightening. Truly, the whole family was involved here and was being scrutinized at every level.
You got the whole family involved here. Courtney's a good-hearted person. She tries to please everybody. And she goes out of her way to please me. You know, and I'm just the mother-in-law. But she does that. She's a pleaser. But you got to set limits for your children. You cannot be best friend, 10-year-old, 12-year-old. You can't be best friends with these guys.
While the wife claimed that the husband needed parenting lessons, and the latter claimed the former needed to have anger management classes, it was time to see who would agree to what. And those choices will decide the course of their marriage. Let's see if the petition for divorce stands or not.
That there was a petition for divorce. We've seen, now that we've consented to the anger management and the parenting courses, is it safe to say that we're going to work on this marriage?
Yes,
Yes.
Wonderful. So we won't be needing this, right?
right.
Fantastic.
A paternity mystery of 30 plus years. Yep. After 3 decades, the plaintiff finally brought the defendant to court to take responsibility for fatherhood. However, Mr. Henderson was determined to stand his ground and ready to prove her wrong.
You're here to prove to him that he is the biological father of your 32-year-old son, Raydell. Now, Mr. Henderson, you have never met Raydell, and you don't believe you're his father, and today you say you're here to prove it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Shedding light on how this story came to be, it turns out the couple's meet-cute was at a bar where Mr. Henderson was a DJ. A happening start, I have to say. But the baby daddy soon interrupted the plaintiff, and it turned pretty chaotic.
By him being a charming, very good looking, Your Honor, we got contact with each other. We started dating. We had a sex relationship, Your Honor. I became pregnant. He had doubt that that was not his child. Being with Mr. Henderson, we continue to have sex, relationship, dating, calling each other, going to each other's house, Your Honor.
Well, the defendant wasn't too shy to tell all about his wild pursuits and that playboy lifestyle. Not something to be proud of, my man. And on top of all that, Miss Brown knew about his lifestyle and she still chose to stay with him. And now, here they were, lashing out at each other.
This whole thing about a team just indicates it was all a game to you, and if you were potentially producing children, that's not a game. That's real life. This is a young man here who's trying to figure out who his father is, and let's be respectful.
Prepare yourselves, people. It's gonna get loud in here. Miss Brown and Mr. Henderson were going at each other's throats while the sun faded in the background. Yeesh! Calm yourselves, guys. You were standing in a court, not the middle of the street. Moreover, the defendant was sure he used protection when they did the deed. But we know that's not 100% effective.
Your Honor, I told her, I know I used protection, but what I did tell her, Your Honor, the only way I'm gonna believe the child is mine if we get a blood test. After I told Ms. Brown that, I didn't see Ms. Brown. This is the first time me laying my eyes on Ms. Brown in 33 years.
Exactly, exactly.
The emotions are still running strong here, even after all these years. Baby mommy further revealed that even though the guy denied paternity, he still visited the baby and spent some quality time. But Mr. Henderson didn't agree with the said version.
I'm calling me a deadbeat far as a man.
are.
A
You
dad,
are.
when
You
I
are.
never knew the
You
child
are.
was mine,
You are.
and she never.
You did know.
She didn't stick
But
around
Ms.
to give me a
Brown,
blood test
Ms.
to
Brown,
prove the child was mine.
Let's be honest here. Behind a lot of your anger
I do have
and
a
all
lot
of that
anger
passion,
because out of 32
you
years,
feel
he
like
put me through this.
you hurt.
Yes, I'm hurt.
Now, after that quality time, the potential baby daddy went MIA. However, according to him, he did come back. Even though he was sure that wasn't his kid, he looked for them. But the baby mama, along with the kid, were gone. Yup.
You never heard from her again after that day?
And I came back by where I knew she lived. She didn't live there anymore. This is maybe about 5-6 months later because I actually didn't believe the child was mine because I was using protection and I wasn't sleeping with her at the time.
You went back there and she was gone. Did you try to look for her or you figured,
Your Honor, I never looked.
It was high time Mr. Brown got the time and space to state his case. he was the one who suffered the most in this entire equation, and that too for so long. He also believed in his heart that the defendant was his father, as they both shared a lot of similarities.
I mean, like, how you sit here and say that I'm not your son, and we look just alike? I mean, this is the first time I ever seen him.
And when you see him in person, you see yourself?
Yes.
Mr. Brown got in contact with Mr. Henderson's sister, and she helped him contact Mr. Henderson. The defendant did call him, but didn't acknowledge him as his son. However, they did share a conversation because Mr. Henderson also experienced a life without a father. So, all hope isn't lost, I guess.
So when he called you, he acknowledged that you were his son?
I mean, no, he never acknowledged. I just told him who I was. We just went on from there. I mean, we had phone conversations and stuff like that.
And so, Mr. Henderson, when you heard about the Facebook post, he was looking for you, you did make the call?
Yes, Your Honor.
Next up, we got to see a picture evidence of a younger version of Mr. Henderson, and the defendant accepted he did see some resemblance in him. But we know by now that appearances can be deceptive.
He's a good-looking young man. I just never saw him before.
Yeah, but you saw him at the age of 2.
Well, if you'd have stayed where you were supposed to
No,
stay, we would know.
I wasn't
and he
supposed
would have
to
been in
stay
my
in
life.
Jersey City.
I blame her, Your Honor, also
Honor, I could
for
not
taking
live
the
in
child
Jersey.
down.
All right, we're not going to do the yelling. We're going to try to figure out how to get the answers Raydell deserves and
Yes, Your
needs.
Yes.
Mr. Brown was hurting and had been in constant pain in the absence of his biological father. All eyes were on the envelope that held the fate of this young man. I hope he gets to hear those 4 words. Fingers crossed.
You are not his father.
Oh, no!
I told you.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm sorry that I thought you were the father because y'all look so much alike.
I understand.
I don't know who the father could be because I was dealing with Mr. Henderson.
Mr. Scott got a sneaking suspicion that his lovely girlfriend might be up to some hanky-panky behind his back. That's insane! Talk about trust issues. Well, let's see if we can help Mr. Paranoid Pants figure out what's really going on here.
She came to visit me. She came to my city. She came to visit me. You know, we hung out. We spent time. We had a nice time that night. No big deal. You know, it was nice. It was nice. She went to sleep. I happened to go through her phone. I went through her phone.
On the first night, you guys had a date?
The reason why I went through your phone, is
Not
because
prior.
her phone.
He had no
she
reason to go through my phone.
Well, that's one heck of a memory. Just so you know, people, Mr. Scott was doing this for the 2nd time, as he already had 7 children from 4 different women. Anyways, let's just focus right back and listen to what the plaintiff had to say.
So I went through her phone, and prior to us being together, conversating and conversing, I see that she had other text messages from other men.
But you weren't in a committed relationship, right?
Yeah.
No, not at that time. No, well, at the time upon of her arrival.
No, see, that's
Upon
why
her
he's
arrival-
stuttering,
Women, you
because
don't
he's
even
lied.
They crossed paths on a dating site, and we all know those are known for their everlasting love stories. Not. But hey, Mr. Scott, being the Sherlock Holmes he is, had his suspicious antennas up right from the start. And the baby mama, oh, she's a persistent one, accused Mr. Scott of being a womanizer. How charming.
Previously, that you had a wife or ex-wife, whatever you like to admit to, the time in which you were sleeping with that person as well as
This person and that person.
Yes.
Girls, only 2
That's
girls.
sad.
Let me add another people.
That's crazy.
Don't add-
You're the person with the trust issue.
I'm a very smart man, you know what I mean? I look for signs.
Oh boy, as if all that drama wasn't enough, Mr. Scott apparently stumbled upon some interesting snapshots of other dudes on her phone. Well, isn't that just peachy? And hold on tight, because he also had the audacity to claim that the baby mama was sending all sorts of intimate pictures to other men.
I don't
Takes
take pictures
pictures
like
in
that, Your Honor. Come
lingerie
on now. Never.
In positions that
Never.
was uncalled for.
Never.
Inside
No.
Motel 6.
In-
You
oh,
don't-
Are you
inside of a
Motel 6,
motel.
Yes, it was.
Okay,
And it was a
Motel
weekly
6.
Motel 6 because they had the whole entertainment inside the motel.
Oh,
it was the
wait a
whole
minute.
thing. It was-
So you know that firsthand?
Of course, man.
The baby mama admitted that she was never in love with Mr. Scott, but when they met, they were both looking for the same things. But ever since the plaintiff decided to question her sincerity, things went south. Let's see what Judge Lake had to say about the situation.
Miss Kalan, now you're in a sort of relationship.
Right.
Every time she comes, you still in her phone.
Maybe four times?
About 6.
Okay.
I don't remember 6 times.
Always still conversations with other men that it seems like she's in a relationship with.
It was always something about a dude.
Oh, Mr. Scott just couldn't let go of his doubts, now could he? And of course, the baby mama was so sure too, until the plaintiff dropped this little bombshell right in the middle of the courtroom. Let's just dive into what happened.
Did you want to be a family with him?
I mean, it was what it was. I wasn't sure if that's what I
What
wanted.
was
He
it?
wanted me to move.
Wait, you said it was what it was. What
I
was
mean,
it?
I just met him not long before that.
said,
You know,
I'm not
I was
finna move
kind
to
of like
Sacramento,
blurry
man.
about it
That
myself.
weird
You know,
city.
who does that? Who gets pregnant the first time they go? I didn't know if that's what I wanted. I told him that.
The never-ending back and forth of accusations wasn't helpful at all. And of course, the parents were too preoccupied with their little dispute to be of any help. So naturally, the only glimmer of hope left was to uncover the oh-so-mysterious contents of the DNA envelope. Let's get ready for the big reveal, shall we?
You are not the father.
I apologize. I could be woman enough to apologize and keep it moving.
Whew.